So, after almost 2 years, I've done 63 episodes of Film Rants. I was hoping to make it to 100, but to be honest, I'm getting bored with it. You see, there's a lot of shit going on in the world right now that pisses me right the fuck off. Venting about some cheesy-ass movie is not getting the viewers in anyway, and it's not satisfying me personally, so it's time I started talking about stuff I really care about, even more than movies. Now, that's not to say I won't be reviewing movies at all on the new show, but it's not going to be my focus anymore. Nonetheless, I wanted to give Film Rants the send-off it deserves. Not quite, no. Here's your final Film Rant show, folks. Greetings, I am E. Adam Thomas, and welcome to Film Rants, the only web series on the internet so far to be canceled due to low ratings. Tonight's a very special episode, as it is our last. To send the show into history correctly, I am reviewing 2 of my personal favorite films of all time. Richard Attenborough's Chaplin, starring Robert Downey Jr., and the final film in the 1990s Heisei era of Godzilla Vs Destoroyah, starring Momoko Kochi, reprising her role as Emiko Yamane from the first Godzilla film from 1954. Before I get to all that, though, I thought I would like to show you a little taste of what it's really like to do a show like this. It's not all fun and games, but it's the hobby I've chosen. The way we do the show, of course, has obviously changed over time, but even as I've refined my process, well, shit happens, yo.
Just let it go.
Take 2, interview with the Vampire Vant.
Skull fucking. Sorry.
Take your Ritalin, Steve. Greetings, and welcome to Film Rants, doing for movie reviews what the Pause it, just pause it. I'm so gothic, I shit bats. Now I'm gonna go take this into Sony Vegas and probably pull my hair out.
What hair? Sorry.
And that has been your Gibbs slap of the week. Oh well, fuck it. See you next week. I'm gonna go pray and get shit-faced. Good night! Oh shit, this was a new tie too. Bit of trivia. Brad, don't be a grapefruit, take 4711. Suck on that. Here's your done red show. Sorry. Like my new desk? It's the same old desk, I just put some contact paper on it. Wow, professional production values. Yay! Bit of trivia. Tonight's Do you have
to go back to...
It takes place primarily on... fuck. Oh, okay. Here we go, Bindi number 2. Greetings, I am E.
Now take a bow.
And welcome to Film Rants. David Hess.
There we go.
Maybe I should quit drinking between takes. Anyway, our first film tonight is Chaplin, the 1992 biographical film on the life of Charlie Chaplin, one of the most important and well-remembered actors and filmmakers in the early days of film. Growing up in absolute poverty in England during the turn of the last century, Charles Chaplin was what many would have thought to be the least likely to succeed, yet he did. Bob Downey's portrayal of Chaplin is quite honestly one of the finest performances, if not only of his career, but possibly one of the best acting performances I think I have ever seen. Now, we think of Downey as the success story now, with Iron Man, Tony Stark, and one of the most oft-quoted celebrities of recent years. But when this film was made in 1992, hiring him for anything was considered possibly risky. And after Chaplin, his career seemed to be headed for Bonaduceville, that horrid cesspool of celebrity infamy from which so few are ever able to escape. In stark contradiction to his 1990s era reputation, Downey proves in this film that he is an actor to be reckoned with. His beautifully nuanced performance holds up whether he is playing the 20-something shooting star with ambition and a libido from hell, or the elderly gentleman so incorrectly certain that his star has faded into depressing obscurity. Every crucial phase of Chaplin's life is depicted here with an almost brutal honesty. Even his questionable penchant for barely legal girls, which today would have gotten him a soul-fucking visit from Chris Hansen at the very least, is boldly depicted without casting him in the shadow of all that stigma would have come to represent. I think that's one of the things that makes a film like this almost impossible to make now. Chaplin was not a pedophile in the strict sense because he was not going after children. He was going after girls on the cusp of legality, at least here in the US, but he wasn't some leering creep in an ice cream van trying to tempt Shirley Temple with a fudgicle. What he was really doing, psychologically, was trying to reconnect with the first girl he ever fell in love with. Yeah, at the time she was 16, and he was 17. Losing her first to another man and then later to illness was a horrific shock to him, and he never really recovered from that. Much more importantly, this film shows his passion for telling stories through the new medium of motion pictures. Yes, he became famous as the silly Little Tramp character, but his films were meant to do more than just make people laugh through pratfalls and wildly elaborate misunderstandings and sarcasm. He had a message about how people should really treat each other. He despised cruelty and ambition without empathy. He was criticized for making sport of authority, and yet he did so to show us that sometimes authority is a fucking shitbag. I'll go into that aspect a little bit more on my new show, but people with power do have a tendency to be fucking evil. Whether it's a CEO of a multinational conglomerate who has found a legal loophole to fuck ordinary folks out of their homes on a goddamn whim, or a white cop beating the fuck out of a black civilian for no reason. Or a black cop beating the fuck out of a white civilian for no reason. Chaplin had a passion for telling these kinds of stories with humor and warmth and maybe just a sting of judgmental sarcasm. And Downey had a passion for bringing these aspects of Charlie Chaplin's real-life persona to fruition. The film, of course, is also beautifully shot, although some of it is a little bit too by the book in terms of cinematography and lighting. Attenborough is one of the industry's most esteemed directors, but I feel his talent lies primarily from getting the performances from his actors and not quite as much from getting the visual image to pop as much as maybe it could. Then again, this is not a glitzy sci-fi film or a dark noir thriller. It's a deeply human story of a very deeply human person. On to the Rantometer for Chaplin. Artistic gets a 5. Coolness gets a 5. And originality gets a bloody 5 as well. I can literally only give it 1/4 of a razor blade for some of the visual aspects I just mentioned. That gives Chaplin a more than honorable score of 14.75 out of 15. You know, I had considered reviewing Citizen Kane for my final episode, which would have gotten a 15, but I fucking hate that movie. No matter how fucking good it is, it's just, ugh. I just don't like it. Ugh, I hate that. Anyway, Before we go on to tonight's second film, I thought we would take a look back with some fond highlights of times on this show where I quite literally came close to having a fucking aneurysm on camera. Thanks to Spielberg, Emmerich and Devlin, and J.J. Abrams, you bastards all want your monsters CGI'd with big explosions, lots of blood, and as little plot or character development as humanly possible. Holy fucking Christ on a rocket-powered pickle! This so-called Godzilla is a bigger wuss than a cat being chased by a water pistol. Holy shit, piss, fuck, cunt, cocksucker, motherfucker, tits, fart, turd, and twat, this film sucks! I've seen better shit crapped onto YouTube by a bunch of drunken frat boys trying to prank a sorority girl into dancing topless with 2 dead squirrels duct taped to her ass while a 40-pound cat with Down syndrome repeatedly shits itself on a poster of Tom Cruise. What in the name of David Boreanaz ass-raping Bela Lugosi in the back of Brad Pitt's BMW possessed them to even try to make this film in the first place? At least make some kind of fucking effort not to make the film suck so hard it makes Plan 9 from outer space look like fucking Star Wars. For fuck's sake, put a little effort into it, you dumb Danish fucks. Come here. Come in, real close. That's it. It's boring as fuck! They won't care that the butler was in the study stooping the maid the exact same moment he was supposed to be murdering Colonel Mustard with a rusty tire iron in the kitchen. And what the hell is a rusty tire iron doing in the kitchen in the first place? He must be the world's shittiest butler if he's keeping automotive tools in the same cupboard with the clean peaches. Holy fucking Kalis on a warp-powered pickle. Use your fucking head, Paramount. In the meantime, I am eating John Cena! Alright, fuck you all! I'm gonna find the cocksucker who started that fucking John Cena baby, and I'm gonna rip his fucking balls off, you understand me? I'm gonna bronze them, beat the living fuck out of him with his own fucking molten bronze nutsack! Fuck you, John Cena! Fuck Grumpy Cat! And fuck Rick Astley! Fuck everyone! God fucking damn it, I'm so sick of this goddamn fucking... Believe it or not, someone's actually willing to marry that in June. Love you, honey. Anyway, on to our second film for tonight. We're going back to where it all started back in March of 2014 when I started this show, a monster movie. For our second episode, I reviewed the first film in the Godzilla series. So tonight, I bring you what I consider to be the final film in the original series, Godzilla Vs Destoroyah. The final film produced by Tomoyuki Tanaka as well, which features Momoko Kochi, who played Emiko Yamane, reprising her role from 40 years earlier in what was meant to be the final Japanese Godzilla movie ever, until the Americans fucked him up 2 years later. In this film, Godzilla is finally starting to feel the impact of all that radiation he's been feeding off of for 4 decades, and is starting to overload. His power has grown so intense that his death actually means the destruction of all life on Earth, either by exploding in a blast of radioactive energy equivalent to 10 times the entire nuclear arsenal of the planet, or melting down in a superheated mass of molten radioactivity that would make the China syndrome look more like a cigarette burn on your dad's favorite chair. God, I got spanked hard for that. Anyway, meanwhile, prehistoric creatures from the Precambrian era, which I assume is the time before Cambridge was built, have been mutated by the very same oxygen destroyer weapon created by Dr. Serizawa that killed the first Godzilla back in 1954. The creatures keep mutating and ultimately merge into a gigantic, horrific creature called Destoroyah, a gigantic crab, bat, tiger, shark, Trump-like creature. Into the fray comes Godzilla's barely grown son, Junior, who has been drawn into the fight in an elaborate scheme to save the planet and give Godzilla one last big smackdown for all of history. Now, honestly, this is one of my favorite Godzilla films ever. It is actually one of the only kaiju films that ever actually made me cry, and I'm not embarrassed to admit that. but this is Film Rants. This is the last Film Rants. It's about time you all got your money's worth. This rant goes to the dubbing artists for this and all of the Heisei era films after Godzilla 1985. All 4 of you, and I swear to God, there was literally only 4 voice actors who ever worked on any of these films. First off, learn how to fucking pronounce nuclear, you ignorant fucksticks. For Godzilla's sake, there's only one U in the fucking word. It has never been, and never will be in any way, shape, or form proper to pronounce it as nuclear. I don't care how many Republicans you fucking vote for, we're not changing the spelling or pronunciation for your trailer park educated asses. Secondly, if you see a script that calls for some of the characters to cry, it might occur to you to actually emote. Show some emotion in your fucking voice. This isn't a fucking book on tape, you shit-licking squid molesters. You're supposed to be voice actors. For the love of every last drop of sweat those overworked Suitmation actors had to expend bringing these films to the screen, at least pretend you attended an acting class or 2. I've heard more empathy and compassion from the automated phone payment system for my cocksucking cable provider. Look, I realize that these kaiju films are not high art. They're not ever going to be known as deep, insightful thought pieces. But by the same token, folks, they're not exactly cheesy-ass puppet shows either. A franchise doesn't last 60 years and have a devoted cadre of fans that spans virtually every continent on the fucking planet without having at least some redeeming excuse me at least some redeeming cinematic and dramatic qualities. And when dubbing artists and their directors treat this material like some kind of fucking shitbag paycheck, it completely devalues all of the time, effort, and money it took to bring these films to the screen in the first place. That's why I pretty much refuse to watch the dubbed versions of any foreign film anymore if a subtitled version is available. There are exceptions. The dubbing on Mothra vs. Godzilla from 1964 and the dubbed version of the anime series Cowboy Bebop are 2 examples of unusually well-performed dubbing jobs. But most dubbed films, language notwithstanding, are abysmally cheapened by the total lack of give-a-fuckism exhibited by the companies who do the job. Don't waste your time on dubbed films, folks, okay? Learn to read instead. Since I've been lucky enough to see the original Japanese version of Godzilla Vs. Destoroyah, I will rate it based on that version. Let's roll out the Rantometer one more time! Artistic gets a 3. There were some missed opportunities here and there, but for the most part, it's a pretty good-looking film overall. Coolness gets a 5. Godzilla looks badass in this film, and most of the monster action is really pretty good. Originality gets a 3.5, because yes, it was a monster movie, and all the familiar tropes were there. But there was also some really good character development for both the human and the kaiju characters. Sakatu does get a 1, because the middle evolutionary Destoroyah creatures kind of looked like Bandai toys being dragged back and forth on a string. And there were a couple of other effects that also kind of failed really a lot harder than they should have. That gives Godzilla vs. Destoroyah a fairly respectable 10.5. It's not the best Godzilla movie ever made, but it's definitely one of my all-time favorites. And, well, I guess that's about it for Film Rants. Honestly, I really have enjoyed bringing you this show, but I have to be perfectly honest with myself. Limiting myself to just doing a rant show about movies has not only become kind of tiring for me, but it's also made watching movies less enjoyable. I would gladly do this for a living, mind you, but as a hobby, having to rip apart some of my favorite movies and look for faults has made the act of watching movies in general less enjoyable. I would much rather expend my vitriol and bile on things that really deserve it. You know, like Donald Trump, terrorists, morons in the internet who take non-issues and turn them into massive media uproars, red cup, and the annoyingly intense packaging on virtually any electronic device you ever buy at a computer store. I mean, I get the whole shoplifting prevention thing, I really do, but if they are literally going to package shit like USB drives and wireless mouses, or mice, or I don't know, like their top secret OSI bionic hardware, at least they could be good enough to help you open the fucking packaging after they're sure your goddamn credit card is cleared. Nobody should need to get fucking stitches after trying to get into their motherfucking micro SD card. Anyway, that's right. Coming in about 2 weeks, get ready for the Rantometer. See you all soon, and thank you all for watching Adam's Film Rants. Angry Men Reviews. Many fucks said, no fucks given.
Fuck 'em, kill 'em, and eat 'em, boys. Go ahead.
So when are Angry Andy and Uncle Drew going to get off their asses and do another episode, huh?